Today I'm talking about closed species discourse, and while this conversation is as old as time, it's becoming a recent thing for me. YouTube is pushing my videos harder because it's the holiday season and ad revenue is 50% higher around this time of year. So I'm getting a lot of new people who are viewing the videos about Chimerion, a species that I have already discussed that I have changed my opinions on greatly, and my shorts about closed species and some stuff like that. A couple people in particular are going through all the comments and responding to me everywhere they see me. It's a little obsessive and creepy, but I thought it'd make for a good topic. Also, arguing this junk in the comments is entirely pointless and super reductive. People don't talk like this. People don't talk by clickety-clack on their keyboard. You don't change hearts and minds with text. You talk to people. If you want to change my mind, you gotta talk to me. And if I want to change other people's minds, I talk to them. But I don't trust that people will watch this all the way through and will comment long before they watch the full video. Some will see the title appear in their feed and they'll go, "Oh, I'm so mad," and the clickety-clackety. I also know that many won't ever change their mind, regardless of what I say, but I feel my viewpoint is necessary because I'm involved in these communities in a way that they aren't. I've talked to the creators, I've talked to members, I've made videos on several of these communities, and I run open species and art RPGs. They're not closed, but I can share my perspective as a creator as well. A lot of the people spreading hate about these groups only have perspective as an outsider, or heard bad stuff from a friend of a friend, or were told to dislike them from a YouTuber who also heard from a friend of a friend or otherwise limited experience. Before we start, I recommend watching Simple Nick's video on a similar subject. When you're done watching this video, of course. We both approach the same subject differently, and Nick talks about different issues and points than I do. So, watching Nick's video will give you a more complete view on this subject. Also, sub to Nick, they made my fursuit, link in the description. First issue. If closed species haters use this energy towards a problem that actually matters, the world might be a better place. Also, you don't hate closed species as much as you hate capitalism, and hassling creators isn't going to solve this thing that you have a problem with, or view as a problem. If they stop, they'll be replaced by another person. You need to attack the problems at the root, not the effects. Arguing with a YouTuber in the comments section or hassling an artist will never fix this problem because it's not the root of the problem. Use this excessive energy and obsessive nature you have on something that actually matters. This thing only matters to you because you seek it out. It's on your mind a lot because you want it to be. You're seeking out this stuff, you want to be upset. If you don't like it, have you considered not seeking it out, or maybe ignoring it? Everyone who participates in these communities do so willingly. So this really is a waste of time. You whine that closed species communities harass non-members for similar characters, but you're harassing people for having a good time, and those people likely have nothing to do with the rare instances of harassment you claim are happening. So, you're not any different. Sorry, you are different. You wave a different banner for a different cause, mighty keyboard warrior. But to address the points that I'm seeing, closed species are restrictive and have lots of rules and stifle creativity. Have you ever watched a streamer play Dark Souls with a dance pad or a guitar controller? Some people like a challenge, and some like prompts and being told what to draw. Some are more creative by having some restrictions, like, for example, in the old days of gaming, they had to find creative solutions to their problems because of limited hardware and file sizes. A lot of your favorite video games just simply wouldn't exist in the same capacity if they had no rules. Absolute design freedom doesn't guarantee creative works no more than restrictive rules squash creativity. Also, with absolute freedom in design, you get choice paralysis. I can't tell you how many communities I've talked to that say they like the rules and having prompts and events. They all say the same thing. It really helps me with art block. As something I hear near daily, running an art RPG of my own. It's not a closed species, but we do prompts and events. Choice paralysis is a thing that happens when you have too many choices and don't know what to choose. If you've ever struggled to find something to eat on a massive menu, then you know about choice paralysis. A closed species can limit your options to a smaller menu and help you choose your meal more easily. Closed species aren't the only way to do this, of course, but these members choose to do it. So again, if they do so willingly, who gives a damn? Don't like it? Don't join. But I don't see why it's necessary to poop on everyone's parade who talks about them. The amount that hate closed species is much more than the ones who enjoy it. Some closed species have become open, And there are closed species creators who have pulled away from their communities or shut them down in response to, harassment over closed species. You won. Shut up already, and let those of us who are left have our fun. Again, complaining about harassment that these communities do, yet closed species haters have coerced these groups into shutting down or changing because you don't like them, when they aren't doing anything wrong simply by merits of being a closed species. Also, I see tons of whining about closed species and being annoying, but you don't see anyone annoyingly being in favor of closed species. Haters will whine and be annoying, then complain about closed species as if they aren't being insufferable themselves. They exist in their own spaces, just trying to do their own thing, and you're shouting from over the fence, "Stop having fun!" That's really the biggest annoyance here. The lack of self-awareness that these people have, and the refusal to hold a mirror up to yourself and question whether you're being just as bad. Having to register to a master list is dumb. Why do I have to have an ID for my character? Master lists are an anti-theft measure. By having a master list entry, you have a place on the net where people can easily confirm you own that character. So if someone steals your character or tries to commission someone, the artist can check and make sure that they actually own the said character. It also prevents people from impersonating you, as I can go onto the master list and check it and see if this person is pretending to be you, or pretending that they own your character. It can prevent scams by people who are selling characters who aren't theirs. Then, lastly, if someone makes a character without going through the community's preferred methods, like many closed species haters do, they can check if the number on the art actually matches an entry on the list. Then they know to avoid you, as you're not a real member of the community. The only reason I can imagine why you would be against master lists is if you're someone who does actively draw characters that are, quote-unquote steal characters or designs or steal OCs, again, quote-unquote, because that's all the master list does, is it prevents character theft. These master lists are also usually managed automatically, as in, you make the character, submit it, then they add it to the list for you. You don't really do anything to get on the master list, it's usually all done by someone on staff. Some charge for updates, but you're taking someone's time for them to update the website, so it's a fair trade. And it prevents people from making changes too frequently and overworking the, usually unpaid teams or very low paid teams who make the master list. Because most people don't pay their Discord mods. The master list is for your benefit, and you usually don't have to do a thing to manage it. This is like complaining that you have a birth certificate and social security number so people don't pretend to be you. There are, of course, people who will draw them regardless, but the master list helps you avoid non-community members who are profiting off of a community they have no involvement in, like rainbow capitalism. Drawing a character just because they asked you not to, then showing off and being proud about it, is so incredibly stupid and childish. It's like the kid who draws on the walls because mommy said not to. They did it for attention. It's goofy, and it lacks self-awareness. Hopefully you grow out of this attention-seeking behavior when you get out of high school, but if not, you'll probably never grow out of this behavior. Doing something just because you're asked not to is like anti-maskers refusing to wear masks because they're not sheep. Or men trying to be sigmas because they're not like the other girls. You're being an ass for the sake of being an ass. It's obnoxious, and some of you are genuinely very talented, and that's why it's so incredibly disappointing seeing you waste your talents in a half-cock attempt to get back at what? Fellow artists? Wow, you sure showed them. The characters are unoriginal and overpriced.
I want you to imagine telling an artist that their adopt is unoriginal because it's a dog. That's essentially what's happening here. People pretend to be outraged with the exclusionary nature, but how many shrimp personas do you actually see in the fandom? What are the chances that one would look exactly like a fluffy shrimp by complete and utter happenstance? Slim to none, but we will find half a dozen knockoffs specifically replicating Mochiri's style. Art theft is never okay, but it's okay if it's a closed species, I guess.
Also, the value of these works are only defined by the audience receiving them. That's how capitalism works. I hate capitalism too, but I understand that this is something that will happen as long as the US continues to run like this. Whining and starting internet arguments won't fix an economic issue. You need to get out there and actually do something. Use your excessive energy to solve real problems instead of harassing internet communities and whining about kids who won't let you play with their ball. I've linked a leftist YouTuber you can check out, who I watch pretty regularly to learn more about socialism, called Second Thought. They teach about socialism in a very approachable and simple way. Every item sold has a value dictated by the buyer. the item is only really worth that money if the consumer is willing to spend that much to buy it. If the consumer doesn't like that price, they can go seek out cheaper alternatives like store brands, knockoffs, or go to a different seller, or buy from a different artist. Do you see where I'm going with this? The buyers see value in the art and community and are fine with the cost, so they buy it. Doesn't matter if you think it's overpriced, as long as the buyer is cool with it. Being civil in discourse is for people who have the advantage of having the popular opinion and can exert numbers over you, but I'm going to try and stay nice regardless of that. It's not your money. You don't get to tell people what to do with it. You don't have to buy it. No one is making you. If it's too expensive, then walk away because you're not entitled to art. I also don't care if you're an artist and you take issue with these communities because you don't speak for artists everywhere. Each of you have different opinions, so pretending you speak for everyone is pretty naive. Lastly, why are you the decider of whether the art or design is good or bad? What makes you the voice of what's good art and bad? Adopts are just NFTs. Tell me you don't understand why NFTs are bad without saying it. Yes. On an absolute surface level look, NFTs and adopts have similarities. Some adopts are made from a base that all have that samey look, with only minor things like color being different. But I don't see you all whining about adopts in general being bad. You only complain about close species, so you're explaining your disdain for these groups with an unrelated factor rather than explaining your disdain with things you have an actual issue with. If you're not whining about adopts in every video about adopts, I don't want you using this argument because you don't dislike adopts, you're just using them as a simple justification. As for the deeper part, NFTs are bad for the environment. Adopts use the same infrastructure as the internet does as a whole. The same infrastructure you use every day to make comments, use social media, and look at images and video. All of that is also used by adopts. NFTs use new internet infrastructure that's designed explicitly for the selling of NFTs, and these systems use a ton of energy and are killing the planet. That's the major distinction here, other than adopts predate NFTs, and that NFTs use automation to randomly generate thousands of images. If you think NFTs and adopts are on the same level of bad, then you need to stop using the internet because you're part of the problem that you take issue with. Legality or closed species aren't legally protected, so I'll draw what I want. This one is a really funny one to me because of just how obviously you poorly represent yourself and your argument. This one is a big silly. You would draw these and break the rules even if it were illegal. So don't pretend that legality is a factor here. Don't pretend legality is a factor when you obviously don't actually care about the legality of it. You're misrepresenting your point and lying in the most obvious way possible. Don't argue from the standpoint of legality when you don't actually care about the legality of it. This is another made up after the fact point. Legality has no bearing on your decision. You're a clown. As for the legality of it, no court has actually ruled in favor one way or the other on this subject, so we can't really speak to the legality of it. People patent names, catchphrases, and people even try to patent things like Magic the Gathering decks. The reality of it is that it exists in a Schrodinger's cat situation, a legal purgatory because no court has ruled on such a thing, and those who have claimed otherwise at me failed to ever send me a source, like a court ruling. So I'm up to changing my mind on this. If it is actually entirely legal and it has been, ruled on in a court of law, please send me the court ruling. I would like to see that. Fundamental misunderstandings because you don't know what an art RPG is. An art RPG in closed species community will often get confused, and that's mostly because of the owners of these communities. An art RPG is an art game where players will draw and submit it for in-game rewards. Think of it like Neopets, but you submit art instead of, counting potatoes to earn money. Art RPGs are basically video games you play with your art, kind of like Art Fight, but it runs year-round. In order to play these games, you need to have a character. In the case of Paper Demon, you can import your own character. But in the case of Nomchromancy, my art RPG, you'll make a new character by playing the game. This is where it gets confused with closed species. You need to play the game to make a nom, one of the species in my game. You can make one if you want without joining the game, but you're not an actual player if you don't play the game. And you won't be able to benefit from the gameplay experience if you're not a player. And that's fine. It's all up to you. It's all on you. But you're missing out. This is like Neopets in that you can draw Neopets and have OCs of them, but you aren't actually playing Neopets unless you're on the site. You're drawing them, but you're not getting the game's experience. Closed species don't want you to make characters unless you go through the right channels to buy and adopt. These aren't art RPGs. Often art RPGs get confused with being closed species because the owner called them a closed species but will have game mechanics like Chimerion. Now, my game is nowhere near as badly monetized as Chimerion, and I'm not going to defend the monetization, and the adopts in my community have stayed around 50 USD. My game has a lot more game to it. We have crafting, equipment, raids soon, leveling, and our creatures even evolve as they level up. But like, the people who buy the adopts in Chimerion aren't there to play the game. No one's buying an $800 adopt just to, change features on it and have to redraw it. No one's going to do that. No one's going to spend, the supposed, $2,000 and stuff like that on the characters just to have traits changed so that they can play the game. No one is joining Chimerion in that way. No one is joining Chimerion by paying $800 for a character and then changing it by earning more traits. So, to that extent, one could say that people who buy the adopts in Chimerion aren't part of the game community. Because they aren't, because no one's going to buy that and change it. My main point here is that a lot of people will say they hate an art RPG without understanding that it's not actually necessarily a closed species. For example, Chimerion is an art RPG, but it's also closed because you have to earn your characters or win the free character raffle. Nomchromancy is an art RPG and is not closed because you get your first character for free. Both have rules. Chimerion have more, but both are a game. In order for a game to function, you need to have rules. You can shove all the pieces of Monopoly up your nose, but you're not actually playing Monopoly unless you follow some sort of rules. For everyone to have fun playing the game, we all have to follow a set of rules. It's kind of like driving. You have to trust that everyone around you, who is also driving, are all driving by the same rules and know what they're doing to some extent. If you can't trust that, it makes, driving a lot scarier. The rules in my game mostly relate to not being a piece of shit, but I have some rules, like only the common traits are free. You have to play the game to unlock the rest. This is called a progression mechanic, like leveling up in an RPG to unlock a new skill. If anyone could make and do whatever they want from the beginning, they wouldn't be playing a game. Hopefully this helps with telling the difference between the two, and art RPGs can stop being conflated with closed species when they aren't the same. Not all art RPGs are closed, but there are some closed ones. As for my species, I really don't give a damn if you draw them without playing, and I have a rule that anyone who harasses you for making a character without playing will get banned. We exist in our own little bubble. If you don't like us, leave us alone. I'm not asking you to join, and we're minding our own business. They're bad because they're exclusive. Concerts are too. Should we do away with those? They have limited tickets, not everyone can afford them. They abuse artificial scarcity and FOMO. So do video games. Pretty much everyone with the Battle Pass has some sort of scarcity and FOMO. When the Battle Pass goes away, all the items on that Battle Pass are taken out of, the available options. And you probably still play them, right? I mean, I know I'm not the only one in my comments who plays Fortnite. Call of Duty players? Yeah, just anyone who bought a Nintendo Amiibo. Because Nintendo had a big problem with artificial scarcity too. They were deliberately not printing enough Amiibo back in the early days. The point is that artificial scarcity being abused is a factor in all of capitalism. Things are artificially made scarce in order to keep the prices high. They did it with milk just last year. They dumped tons of milk because people weren't buying it and they didn't want to have to lower the prices. So if you have an issue with it, if you have an issue with like closed species using our artificial scarcity and FOMO, then you shouldn't play your video games that you like so much either, because your video games obviously abuse those too. Last of all, I wanted to talk about this because Nick makes a really good point, and it's one I've said before. You may accuse closed species of being unoriginal, but was there a demand for chameleons before Chimerion? Was there a demand for shrimp before fluffy shrimps? Sure, but not nearly as many as when you were told you couldn't have a closed species persona based on them. You only care now because you were told no. These groups popularized and basically defined what these creatures would look like as furries. They went in a direction few to no one else was going in. Why do you care now when you didn't care to make a chameleon or shrimp before? It's as simple as that. You only care now because you were told no. This is really all I have to say on the subject. It's really disappointing to see so many people care so negatively about what is effectively a non-issue. You could do so many things with the time that you wasted. You could make great things with this time. You could play a game, watch a movie, make beautiful works, but instead you're whining on the internet or wasting your artistic talents on trying to own the artists. It's sad that you waste your talents like this, and it's a little pathetic that you seek attention this hard. Bye-bye. Thanks to all my patrons on Patreon. Because of this, I can continue eating the classic human holiday cuisines, like Christmas trees. So thanks again to Mystic Mitsuki, Bait, Cryptid Artha, Sly, Colorado Blue, Linky, Kit Chimera, Vaderson, Series, and Malding Brick. Thank you all for being so awesome. It's been a great year, and I look forward to another one. Bye-bye.